What's up, meine Schlagens, and thank you so much for clicking on today's video. Today I want to talk about Modern Warfare 2's multiplayer and my thoughts on Warzone 2. And I wanted to share my experience of the multiplayer so far, which I have put about 80 hours in. So yeah, let's talk about the things I like and I don't like, as well as my thoughts on what we can expect from Warzone 2 and my concerns with it. First off, I want to say I was quite surprised that this year's iteration of Call of Duty actually changes things up quite a bit, at least by Call of Duty standards. Let's start with the elephant in the room. The biggest change probably people are yelling about everywhere on the internet is the movement. You probably heard it by now, Infinity Ward did a lot of nerfing to the movement. That means no more slide cancelling, no more bunny hopping, no more slide shooting, etc. Things like diving and sliding are a means to get into cover now, as they should be, instead of broken mechanics that can be exploited to outplay other people. Haters would say that these changes were made to protect campers, but especially slide cancelling wasn't even a mechanic that was intended at all, it was literally a bug. I personally like this change. This leads to a game that plays a little bit more slower and more tactical than previous titles, and I don't feel the need to constantly sweat my balls off when I want to play a casual round of multiplayer with friends. This hopefully also transfers into Warzone, and means that I don't have to constantly try my absolute hardest to have a fun game, and it's not that easy to abuse broken mechanics, although I'm sure they will find new ones to abuse. Then, there is recoil. Actual recoil. Seriously. Most guns actually have recoil, and it's way more difficult to beam enemies with an SMG across further distances than it used to be. Attachments that improve recoil have significant side effects, and there's an actual trade-off. They have slower ADS speed or movement speed, which makes the gunsmith very interesting this time around. You actually have to think about your weapon build a bit more and can't just slap the same 5 attachments on every weapon to have the ultimate laser beam. Different weapon classes also feel more different this time around, which means that you have to adjust your playstyle a bit more to what kind of gun you're running with, which I think is amazing. It makes the game feel more diverse, in my opinion, as well. There are some balancing issues with the guns currently. Snipers and shotguns feel overpowered, especially the SBR and the SAB marksman rifles. They just aren't fun to play against because they are one-shot kill, they don't have any flinch, and if the user is decently skilled, it is pretty much impossible to challenge them. However, playing ground war, where you fight over longer distances, it really helped me realize that weapon classes really have their place now and feel different depending on what range you're using them at. Partially this is due to recoil, but also due to things like bullet velocity, bullet drop, damage range, and all that kind of stuff. The new Warzone map, Al-Mazrah, is huge. So what this means is that there will be way harder to, as I said before, to beam enemies with guns that are not sniper rifles, like assault rifles, SMGs, over longer distances. Snipers have more bullet drop than in previous CODs, so require more skill, which means one-shot headshots are more difficult to pull off as well. All these balancing mechanics make me really hopeful about how Warzone 2 is going to play out. The map design this time, generally speaking, is also pretty good. I really think it's a shame that the museum map from the beta didn't make it into the game. I really enjoyed that one, and I really don't like the map Embassy, but all other maps I really enjoy. I will say, however, most maps are pretty assault rifle and sniper heavy, but overall I think they did a really good job, and I am enjoying the more compact 3-lane focused maps a little bit more than I did the maps in Modern Warfare 2019. In addition to that, the bits and pieces we get to see of Al-Mazrah in Ground War and during the COD Next, as well as the DMZ reveals, they also look fantastic. There are a few very open spaces that I saw that reminded me a bit of No Man's Lands in Verdansk, but generally speaking, there seems to be enough cover in the terrain to have fair fights and to make interesting plays and pull off good flanks. Also, rocks are finally climbable. That's actually a huge thing in my opinion, because I can't even count how often I raged at Verdansk and Caldera because of the stupid rocks that weren't climbable. The main design flaw of Al-Mazrah that I saw from watching Huskers, Bradman and Jowo is the sun, actually. It is insanely bright, the flare is way too big, and depending on your rotation, it can literally mess up your whole game because you won't be able to see your enemies. That thing needs to be fixed. I don't get it why, because it's not a problem in most multiplayer maps, with the exception of Embassy, which I already said I don't like. But yeah, hashtag nerf the sun, please. I also want to quickly address the inventory and looting from what I've seen in the gameplay. It looked way better and more intuitive than it did during the Connect event last week, but I'm personally not a fan of backpack inventory management in video games in general. It looks like they kept it to a minimum, but I really wish we will eventually go back to the old system because I can see problems with this new inventory already. For example, it looks like it's possible to carry around like more than 5 kill streaks, 10 lethal grenades like Semtex, or like 20 plates, which I'm sure makes for interesting strategies, but I can already see, people exploiting this. On the other hand, I can see really good players like Iron really carrying around 5 airstrikes and 5 claymores, post up in a building, and go for like insane 100 plus win streaks. Maybe there are some limitations that I wasn't seeing in the gameplay, but it looked like it could be an issue, and I'm right now, just from looking at it, obviously I haven't played it, I'm not a big fan of it. The biggest issue for the casual player that I see is the unlock and weapon progression system though. I've spent about 100 hours on the multiplayer already, and I still haven't unlocked all the attachments. Casual players that get to spend maybe 10 hours a week or even less on the game, they will never have a decent loadout at this rate, because you have to actually level every gun to unlock every attachment, which I don't know why they did that. It's just very non-intuitive in my opinion. Joe put out a great video on this that explains the issue like more in depth, and it explains it very well, which I'm going to link in the description. So check that out. Shout out to him at this point. If you don't know Joe Woe, he's one of the greatest Warzone players of all time in my opinion. Check him out, and if you like his content, obviously leave him a like. The last thing I want to talk about is the loadout situation in Warzone 2. So from what I understand, or from what I've seen, there will be 2 ways to get your loadout. Either you go into one of the strongholds on the map and you have to fight AI to get a loadout drop, which obviously draws attention to your squad because there will be a firefight. And I think they also get a notification that people are getting into a stronghold or fighting at a stronghold. So this could make for interesting firefights in general and interesting situations because of the way like there's more risk to acquiring a loadout rather than just making some cash. The other way is about halfway through the round, there are about 3 or 4 loadout drops spread across the map. Every team will be able to get their loadout on just 1 box. They don't disappear based on how many people have used it. And there's no like specific loadout box for one team, but everyone on the map can basically hit every loadout drop, and they disappear after a certain time limit. Both ways will help you get your loadout guns as well as your perks. So you can still do strats where you get 2 loadout boxes, but you have to hit a stronghold first to get all your perks, for example, and then hit one of the 3 loadouts that drop about halfway through the game. If you're just interested in getting your guns, don't care about the perks that much, you can buy them at buy stations, which I also think is an interesting idea. At first I didn't like this change at all. I wanted to be able to still just buy a loadout box like in the old days. However, after thinking about this a little bit, I think this could potentially be better. It is more of a high risk, high reward gameplay in acquiring loadouts this time around, which again, I think could really make for interesting strategies. I think in general, they are doing a really good job of implementing changes that actually mean something, meaningful changes, which can lead or potentially will lead to the game being played differently than Warzone 1 and still feeling familiar in some ways. So it doesn't feel like a completely new game. It really feels like more like a Warzone sequel rather than a completely new game or a completely different game with some, as I said, some meaningful tweaks here and there. So to sum it all up, I think this year's Call of Duty offerings are really great. I'm having a lot of fun with multiplayer. Knockout is my favorite mode that really you should try if you haven't already. I think it's a really underrated mode. I really like that it plays a little bit slower than older Call of Duties, and some balancing issues aside, I'm looking forward to more content for the next 2 or so years. And the last Warzone 2 event really got me excited for what's to come later this week. Thank you again, meine Schlangens, for clicking on today's video. Let me know what you think in the comments below and leave a like if you enjoyed or agreed. Until next time. Bye! What?
30 seconds remain.
God damn.
Oh, you've got the camera.
Throwing Semtex!
Then send it to Iceman Isaac and see if he'll review it for you. Get up, get up, get up.
We have taken the package.
Oh, I just had to hit my shots.
1 minute remaining. We lost. The enemy has the package. The enemy lost the package.
And that's an ace.
20 kills. Wow. 20
Package
bomb.
will destroy the enemy.
That's really fucking annoying.
No
Let's
UAV
having
in
such a
the
good
area.
round.
You were.
Switching mags!
No cluster mine active.
Reloading!
Be advised, UAV is exiting the...
Last minute. We have the package.
UAV
Drop their
ready for
sniper.
tasking.
Requesting recon at my location.
Copy that. UAV is on station.
I killed the whole team last time.
This ain't what you want, bitch, I'm a fucking phenomenon.